tackling tough topics to help you think reasonably about life's most important issues. This is Thinker Sensitive. Welcome to Thinker Sensitive. My name is Ryan Ragazine, and I am the host of the Thinker Sensitive podcast. I hope you are having a great week. My wife informed me last night that it is now officially springtime, so that's very exciting. I am not a huge fan of winter, and I always feel like winter just kind of drags on, and so I'm very excited for the spring. I'm very excited for the summer, and I hope you are as well. On today's podcast, we're going to be discussing the relationship between Christianity and conspiracy theories, or even the relationship between religious belief and delusional thinking. This is an issue that some of my friends have raised in the past as real concerns of theirs. So I wanted to take some time to really dig in and evaluate this topic. QAnon is a web of wide-ranging conspiracy theories that started to gain traction in 2016, when it caught the attention of the general public during the presidential campaign. It was propagated by someone known as Q, who claimed to have access to insider information, which was released to the public in bits and pieces known as Q drops on various social media sites. It's my understanding that this anonymous source hasn't posted since the winter of 2020, though the spirit of Q and many of the different theories and propaganda associated with the anonymous poster still live on. Among these conspiracy theories, which have been widely debunked and discredited, is the idea that former President Donald Trump is fighting a secret war against a global child sex trafficking ring led by satanic politicians, Hollywood elites, and other Satan-worshipping pedophiles. Conspiracies like this one have gained traction and have become quite popular in some American churches, especially evangelical ones. So it's not all that surprising to learn that the anonymous Q was known to post Bible verses from time to time. According to a January 2021 American Perspective survey, a study conducted by the Survey Center on American Life, which is a project of the American Enterprise Institute based in Washington, D.C., around 4 in 10 religious Americans who are members of a local congregation believe the results of the 2020 election were not legitimate. Just under 1 in 5 accept the QAnon conspiracy theory that former President Donald Trump has been fighting a group of child sex traffickers run by Democrats and Hollywood elites. 18% of white Catholics and 15% of white mainline Protestants say QAnon's claim about Trump is mostly or completely accurate, compared to 27% of white evangelicals. Outside of the results of this survey, during the COVID-19 era, churchgoers have been known to accept the idea that liberal politicians are trying to use the virus as a means to permanently shut down churches. Some churchgoers have even believed the claim that face masks are deadly, and have accepted the falsehood that George Floyd's death was faked. All of this ends up giving religious people, and Christians like me, a bad name. It places a stain on religion and feeds into modern and secular stereotypes of Christianity. It's no wonder why religious people are often portrayed negatively in contemporary media. Music, shows, movies, news. So much of this negativity is our own fault. We bring it upon ourselves. We wonder why people have grown so disillusioned with the church. Why the divide between Christianity and modern society is growing so sharply and so rapidly. This is one of several reasons why I tend to distance myself from American and evangelical Christianity. Even though I hold many things in common with evangelical Christians, there are many views and many tendencies in American evangelicalism that I would rather not be associated with. And the natural inclination towards conspiracy theories is certainly one of them. Why are so many religious people involved in conspiracy theories and radicalized propaganda? Why are so many Christians in particular entrenched in conspiratorial beliefs and ideas? What is it about the religious psyche that attracts the devoutly religious to conspiracy theories? Why are Christians so susceptible and so prone to these kinds of beliefs? These are the tough questions that we'll tackle on today's episode. Though I don't believe that faith and reason are opposed to one another, I do believe that a certain kind of faith can be in conflict with reason. This form of faith is called fideism. Faith can either be blind or it can be supported by reason. Blind faith, unfortunately, is too often present in the church today. This faith can be in tension with empiricism, the inductive method, and science as a whole. It can become superstitious, delusional, fanatical, and can lose sight of reality. I might state my opinion on the matter like this: faith and reason are not intrinsically opposed to one another, but a certain flavor of faith can be detached from reason, leading to the blind acceptance of many odd beliefs, superstitions, and conspiracy theories. Blind faith can attach itself to a kind of neurosis. This is not just true of religion, as blind faith is not simply found in the religious sphere. For example, one can have a blind faith in one's political ideology or political party. One might call blind faith in this context blind allegiance. In the political realm, this blind allegiance can attach itself to the same kind of neurosis. Like with religion, it can lead to the acceptance of many odd beliefs, superstitions, and conspiracy theories. It can even lead to the denial of science and the denial of reality. And this is not just a conservative or right wing phenomenon and propensity either, as some have come to believe. It can be found on both sides of the aisle and even hailed as progress. But today, we're talking about blind faith in the religious sphere and the peculiar idiosyncrasies that are too often attached to it. To truly understand the fixations and phobias in question, one must have a basic understanding of the context, the situation and setting that the church currently finds itself in. The American church is at a great crossroads. The conventional brick and mortar church in the US is becoming more and more irrelevant, particularly among the younger generations. I truly believe that as time moves on and as the older generations begin to pass, the traditional American church will become like the church in Europe: a relic, a remnant, a dinosaur. This decline has only been exacerbated and accelerated by COVID-19 and political polarization. This doesn't mean that I believe that Christianity itself will fade, but simply the modern institutionalized church as we know it today. I actually think that Christianity has the potential to become much stronger, much more genuine, and much more healthy as the brick and mortar church becomes weaker. I believe this for several reasons, but my views on this will have to wait for a different episode. Before I move on to my next point, though, I should say something positive to balance out my apparent negativity. Though I think the conventional American church has deviated from the way of Christ and the primitive Christian community in some ways, I definitely believe that there are a lot of churches out there that are doing great work, and that there are a lot of congregants in these churches who are great people and solid ambassadors of Jesus Christ. As much as there are things to critique, there are also many things to commend. I don't think the church as we know it today is a complete lost cause. There are many benefits that come with the church's existence, and there are many benefits to be found in church attendance. But with the contemporary decline of the church in mind, you have to understand that many traditional churchgoers are feeling extremely insecure and unsettled. The world is changing. Christians are getting swept out of the public square. They're losing their place in society. In quote, God's country. In quote, our country. There's no country for old men and old women anymore. Traditional values, biblical values, are being deconstructed and replaced by new ideologies. Traditional beliefs are being swept away by new ideas and new beliefs. Laws are changing. Non traditional values and mores are being promoted through legislation. For many evangelical Christians, the church can either keel over and die or fight for its existence and influence. Those who want to fight become very political. The church that fights for its existence, the church that fights for self preservation, often becomes a political church, which can be counterproductive to say the least. This situation, this setting, this state of mind, when combined with blind faith, can lead to many idiosyncrasies and neuroses. Fear and obsessiveness can become commonplace. For the church, there's the fear of losing tax privileges and economic benefits, the fear of persecution, the fear of losing power, the fear of extinction, the fear of change, even radical change. Fear usually breeds obsessiveness. In the church, this fear and obsessiveness are combined with a pessimistic view of the world. The world is evil. The world is a lost cause. The outside world is the enemy. You find this kind of chronic negativity. The current situation and setting is viewed through a negative lens. There's nothing positive that can be gleaned from what's going on, like a needed reformation of the church, for example. Everything is just falling apart. Then you add the political bias and the political allegiance. See, the church, the evangelical church in particular, doesn't just struggle with blind faith in the religious sphere, but blind allegiance in the political sphere. This is a bad combination, and it can be a recipe for disaster. The Protestant church, going back to Martin Luther, has also always had a problem with polarizations. A sharp divide has too often been created between nature and grace, the sacred and the secular. Within this, you find a very simplistic, black and white understanding of good and evil. Secular society is wicked and evil. The church is the only good left in society, and it's fading fast. Darkness is overcoming the light. This is mixed with an apocalyptic, doomsday mentality that is intensified by modern American readings of end time prophecy, specifically a literal reading of the book of Revelation. Interestingly enough, the apocalyptic mindset is not just found in the church, it's rabid outside the church as well. Just look at how many post apocalyptic movies have been made over the last 2 decades. People are obsessed with the apocalypse, whether a zombie apocalypse or otherwise. But many American Christians, out of fear and obsessiveness, pessimism and negativity, staunch political partisanship, polarized thinking, and blind faith, are carefully looking and intensely watching for the signs of the end of the age. In an unstable world that is slipping away from them, this gives Christians something to hold on to, a sense of control and security in the midst of chaos and decadence. Because for them, the end of all things represents the church's victory over the world, the triumph of light over darkness, the overcoming of evil by the good, the ultimate conquest of the church, the consummation of the will to power and control for the Christian. As much as I believe that there will be an end of time, as much as I believe that there will be a transition from time to eternity, as much as I believe in the kingdom come, in His will that will be done on the earth as it is in heaven, I think that sometimes our beliefs can become a bit distorted, and sometimes our focus can become somewhat misguided. Modern readings of end time prophecy and conspiracy theories go hand in hand. End time prophecy is speculative, conjectural, and conspiratorial in nature. Many of the same neuroses that are found in the conspiracy theorist are found in the interpreter of biblical prophecy. I would argue that the obsessive interpreter of end time prophecy is a conspiracy theorist in some way and to some extent. When you put all of these things together, with blind faith as a central herb or spice, you have a bunch of ingredients that form the recipe for delusional thinking. And the acceptance of conspiracy theories is one of the prime results of this. As a Christian and a devoutly religious person, all of this concerns me. I think my biggest concern is the Christian witness in the world. Honestly, sometimes I'm hesitant or even embarrassed to tell people that I'm a Christian. Not because of Christ Himself, far from it, but because I'm kinda embarrassed of other Christians. Instead of influencing the world for good, some of this stuff actually does a disservice to the positive influence of Jesus Christ in society. It actually does damage to the Christian witness in the world. I believe in the classical and ecumenical truths of Christianity. I believe that these truths are good, that Christianity is truly good news. But these kinds of delusional and fanatical attitudes behaviors, and mindsets make it more difficult to see, to recognize the truly good news of the faith passed down. So many Christians are worried about the demise of the church in America and the decline of the church's influence. But we are, at least in part, doing this to ourselves. We are participating in the church's fall. As some people say in the sporting world, the church is kind of beating itself right now. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. This episode, and all episodes of Thinker Sensitive, are available at thinkersensitive.com, iTunes, Spotify, and more. If you enjoy our content and wish to donate to help us grow our online community of thinkers, please visit thinkersensitive.com.